I thought, like, why would Jesus love me if he can love somebody worse?
Wow.
Like, if he can, why would he love just a church kid that is fine? Like, I've never done anything. Like, I don't do drugs, I don't sit around, I don't drink, like, I don't do anything. But why would he waste his love on me when he can be loving, like,
people who are broken?
Yeah, people who are like come in so broken, come in like a drunk and all this stuff. So that's how I began to see things. So
welcome to another episode of One Way Podcast. I'm your host, Angel Ariola, and today we have a very special guest. We have Leo Rodriguez, and she's going to share her testimony and everything that God's been doing in her life. And so we're going to go ahead and get started.
I've been saved for a year. It's going to be 2 this year. And I was just a regular church kid. When I was 5, my parents had got sent out to the west side of San Antonio. And we came back when I was 11. We've been back ever since. And when we went to the New Mexico boot camp, I got saved there, and I was 15, and I've been saved ever since.
So you said going on 2 years, right?
Yeah, in July. Yeah.
And so, okay, well, growing up in church, ever since you were a baby, right? You could just remember, right?
Yeah.
So you were 5 when your parents got sent out.
Yeah.
And do you remember anything when you were out there?
Yeah. So I remember. Of course, it's a pioneer church, so you just do what we do, like you outreach, you invite people. So I remember it was different, of course, being from the mother church, because there's people there, and when you go to church, there's people going to be there, and we were the church, there wasn't really anybody. And then slowly we began to get people and stuff. And when I was like younger, of course, like when you're younger, you're like, oh, I love Jesus, and I'm saved and stuff. But when I began to get older, like maybe like 9, 10, I began to see things and like understand like how people came into the church, how they were, and what their lifestyle was and stuff. So I just had I was just questions and stuff, but like in my little mind, right, as much as I could. But I remember feeling like, of course, when I was little, I was like, I just want like a friend, because of course there's people always coming out in and out, and of course you try to help them and stuff. But so I would tell my mom, and I would, because for a while I was the only girl, not the only girl, but I had a younger sister, but I wanted a girl my age. So for a long time, I didn't have that. So I remember telling my mom, like, Mom, I really want a friend. And of course I went to school and stuff, but I just remember feeling like in church, I guess, alone, and I wasn't used to that, because when I was growing up, I always had like a church buddy or something. So I just remember feeling, then I began to feel like kind of alone, and just kind of, but then I felt that, but I didn't have like anger. I don't know how to explain it, but I wasn't like mad about it. I just wanted that. I was like still innocent. Right. So I just wanted that. So yeah. And then when we came back, when we came back, I was 11, just about to be 12, and I was already by the time we came back, I was very angry. I was very angry, very stubborn, and very broken, and just I was just so lonely. I remember like just crying and crying, because I'm from a big family, and of course from a big family you're with somebody, and I really thank God for my family, because while we were out there, that's all we had, and that's how we became a close family. Like I don't know how to explain it, but we became very close, and we still are. But when you're out there, it's just a different type of close. Like I don't know how to explain it, but so when we came back, I was very angry. I was very I had a lot of questions like, well, why did this happen? Why did this have to happen? Like, I was just very angry at myself, angry at certain people. I would say I was angry at God, but more of like, God, why? Like, why did this have to?
Right.
And not like because my life was so horrible, because it wasn't like I have a good life, and I know that people have had worse ones. But I still had problems, and so I was, yeah. So that's how. So then we a few years went on, and I became.
Do you think, like, why do you think you were feeling like that? Like when you came back, like, was it
Because when we were out, things had happened,
right?
and I would see different people come into the church, and different from different lifestyles. There was like family just trying to get on their feet. Like there was drug addicts. There was people who were like their family was so broken and all this stuff. And I began to see that, and I don't know, and I just thought like I just never it never really clicked in my mind like that. I knew that Jesus, of course, I hear it all the time. Like when you're a church kid, you hear like Jesus loves you, like he died for you, and all this stuff. But when I began to see that, I just I thought very little of myself. That I was just like, well, why did why would Jesus love like just like a regular church girl like me? I've been in church all my life. I go to church. I'm not a horrible person. Like, but why would he want to waste his love on me? Um, and I guess for some people that sounds super dumb, because you're like you see like, oh, like Jesus loves you, like, but that's how I really thought that, like, maybe I didn't have like worth in myself. I didn't see it. And so when we so and then so when we're out, um I have like an oldest one of my older brothers. He had moved out. Well, the oldest one had moved out, but it was very like it was like I said, we were very close. So when he moved out, it was just like kind of like the world kind of just like kind of tilted, and kind of we're already kind of struggling in the church and trying to bring people in and try to draw people in. But it was just more like, but we've been doing this. Like I just didn't understand. Like
Right.
I just, of course, you're so little, you don't understand. And I just remember feeling, of course, and it wasn't the very best of how to go about it. Like my brother didn't go do it, and he was oldest, so like everybody's learning. Like nobody knows what to do. So I just remember feeling. So then that's when I began to get angry at him, angry, and I began to put it on myself. Like maybe if I was a better sister, or maybe if I was, and of
Really?
course, yeah. And
Wow.
I just, I know it sounds like, and we weren't like at that time we weren't close because he was 18 and I was like 9.
Right.
I want to say like I was like 9, maybe 10. And we weren't really close, but I mean, he was still my brother, He
Yeah.
was still my oldest brother. I still saw him as my oldest brother. So I just remember feeling like maybe if we did something wrong, like we're trying, like I just remember just like what? Like it was just a lot of questionings and stuff. So then that began to happen. And then the next one under him moved out, and I was like, oh, like this again, like, and then that just broke me again. Like it just kept getting, but I think the big thing is I never talked about it. I never told my parents. I never never. I just never said anything
Yeah.
because I was little. I was like, they have like other things to worry about. Like it's nothing big. I just thought like it's nothing. Like I just brushed it off. So I began to like, of course, so then I began to get mad at him, and I just remember crying and crying and just feeling like, God, like why, like what are we doing? Like I don't understand. Like why can't they just stay and all this stuff again? And again, I began to put it on myself. Like maybe we did something wrong, maybe I did something wrong, maybe we're not, and I began to think like maybe we're not enough for them, and maybe I'm not enough. And I began, of course, I began to put it on myself again, and yeah, so then that's how I became very angry. And so then we went back to the church. It was more, I would say, like more easier. I don't know, like it would be just became like easy. It was just easier to kind of blend in with my friends. So then again, I went back and caught up with my friends, whatever. And
So when y'all came back,
yeah, when we had came back, and I remember, like, of course, I would like vent to my friends, and I would be like so mad, and they knew, but they were the only ones that actually knew what was inside, because I said I never talked about it, and but you can still see it, if that makes sense.
right.
Like you could have saw how, if you talk, maybe if you like, I don't know, maybe if you talked to me, or when I was like younger, you would have, like, if you would ask certain questions, something would come up, you would see like,
Something's wrong.
yeah, like something's kind of off,
Right.
or like she has more issues
Right.
than she lets on, you know. Um,
That's
so
crazy how you're saying that. And how old were you when you were feeling like when your brothers left, like, oh, like it must be because of me? Like, how old were you at that time?
so I want to say I was 9 when my first brother moved out.
Right.
So, and then the following, because they're back
Right,
to
right.
back. So the following year, it happened again. So I was
10 years
10,
old.
10, 9,
And
10.
it's crazy how, like, you know, what it sounds like really just like the enemy was just attacking your mind, making you feel like, and to
Yeah.
think that at 10 years old, you're already going through that feeling like, well, is it my fault? Like, and really, it really wasn't.
Yeah.
And to think that how you were feeling like, did you have hatred in your heart? Or like you were confused?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
I was
why?
very
Right.
confused. Yes. Um, I wouldn't say hatred. Maybe it was. I don't really
Right.
know.
Right.
I wouldn't. I just personally wouldn't say that, but I did feel it was very like a lot of questions.
Right.
Like I was like, why God? Maybe if this, maybe if that.
Right. Right.
Why can't we be enough? Why can't we be just a normal family? Why can't, a lot of just
Right. Right.
questions, and just, and but like you said, like the enemy was like, he saw my vulnerable like
Yeah.
state, I guess, like
Right.
mind, that he just began to put that in my thoughts, and I listened to it, you know.
And so so he's doing all that 'cause that's what it sounds like. He was kind of just like tormenting you, blaming you, and did it make you feel a type of way towards like church and towards like everything y'all were doing out there?
Mm, no, it wasn't, because I was so young. I didn't fully understand it myself. Like
Right.
I
Right.
didn't
Right. Right.
understand the own things I was
Yeah. Yeah.
thinking, you
Yeah.
know? So I don't think, and I don't think so, just because I was so young, in that. And like I said, when we came back, um, I, and I never, it was crazy because I never like said anything like, or put anything on the church. And it's weird, like I guess like you would, you know,
Yeah.
but I never did,
Right.
because I knew that at the end of the day it was their decision. Maybe that's, of course I see that now, but I never did. And it sounds, now that I think about it, I'm like, that's crazy that I didn't, because
Yeah. It
you would
is.
think it, you know.
Because everybody
But
blames the church for
yeah,
everything. Yeah.
yeah. So, but I think one of the reasons why I didn't is because when we had came back that same year, I got pulled out of school. So my friends were gone. So my friends, the only friends I had were from church. That's it. I didn't have school friends. I didn't have church, other people outside the church. So that became my main thing. Like I would think like, oh, we need to go to church. Like I want to go to church.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because, excuse me, that we wanted to hear. I wanted to hear about God or anything, because I didn't. I really didn't. Because at that time I knew like I need to get saved, and I knew, because that stuff had happened, I kept that in me. And so I just remember like feeling like, oh, we need to go to church, but it wasn't. So then I began to like, I wouldn't say like obsess over it, but like that just became my main focus, because my family wasn't doing it anymore, so my friends needed to do it. Like it wasn't giving me, because I was so lonely, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
like my family wasn't whole anymore, I guess you would say. And that's why so church was, I wanted to go to church.
But it was just to hang out.
Yeah.
Right.
It
Well,
was
because
just to
it's
have
crazy how you're
fun.
saying like back then, like you wanted that. You wanted like a friend, like a kind of like a church buddy
Mhm.
when y'all were pioneering. So that's probably why you always wanted to be in church. Like I didn't just kick it.
Because I knew it. Because I was like, look, if we go back to pioneering, I'm not gonna have no friends.
Right.
So because I got pulled out of school and stuff. So yeah, it's just. So then I began. So then, and I know like people say that the more you sit in church and you like say no to God over and over again, that you would have like you start having like a hard heart or like a cold heart. I don't know if that. But I do believe that is true because of course I go back. You're at church, and of course when we came back, my parents were one of the leaders and stuff. So because we were out, so and not that I'd play the church game like I rose my hands and all this stuff, but I remember had gotten saved like maybe like when I was 12 or like 13. I went to the altar and I prayed and stuff, but I was just saved. Like that was it. It wasn't. I didn't have a relationship with God. I didn't. I was still so angry and so bitter from that. So when I was like past saved, I was just like I said, I was just saved. Like that was it. I didn't have anything. I wasn't. I went to outreaches because my parents was outreaches, but I didn't. It wasn't anything like I was just like, oh, I'm saved, and that's what's gonna keep me fine. Like it's gonna keep me good, and that's it. But after that, so then after a while, I was just like, you know what, I'm done. Like I don't even want to be saved anymore because that's when, like you said, I guess, the enemy would like try to get like would put thoughts in my head, and I was always like thinking about it, and I was always like putting it in my mind, like thinking about it, and just like, um, yeah, I guess just thinking about it. I don't know
Like
how
the
to.
past.
Yeah, and that's when I began to like you're not even. Why would God wouldn't even save you? And like you're God like and it sounds dumb now that you're a church kid, you should know this, but I thought like why would Jesus love me if he can love somebody worse?
Wow.
Like if he can, why would he love just a church kid that is fine? Like I've never done anything. Like
Right.
I don't do drugs, I don't sit around, I don't drink, like I don't do anything, but why would he waste his love on me when he can be loving like
People who are broken.
yeah, people who are like come in so broken, come in like a drunk and all this stuff. So that's how I began to see things. So
hold on. So you were thinking that when you were young, and then it started happening again when y'all came back.
Yeah. So I already had thought like about that, like when my brothers had left, I thought about like what if I'm not enough, like
Right.
stuff
No
like
self worth, none of that. Were you thinking like that? Like you didn't have no worth and stuff like that?
I guess I would say because I would think like maybe I'm not enough, and
Right.
maybe our I don't know. I guess for me, I would say yes because I would think like maybe if I loved them enough, or maybe if I was a better sister. So that's why I began to like in myself like resent myself as well.
Wow.
So
that's crazy. How like the devil would just put all these things in your head and you start believing it, and then later on it's still happening.
yeah,
But yeah, go ahead.
So when throughout like okay, so maybe like 13, 14, I was just like, you know what, I don't care, like I'm done, like it doesn't matter. Not that it wasn't like a set time that I was like, okay, like this service, I'm done. Like I'm not gonna be saved anymore. But it was just slowly thinking those thoughts and stuff. Um, and like I said, like it was just eating me, and like the bitterness and the anger, it was just eating, and like the loneliness, it was just eating at me. So
And the whole time nobody knows.
no, because I never talked about it. I never, and like you would see it. I know my parents would see it, and they would talk to me, but I would always shut down really fast. I was very because those things had happened in the past, I was very like I would try to like protect my heart, I guess, like guard my heart, like put walls around me. So as soon as somebody would talk to me, I would block them out like completely, like so fast. And I was just like, no, like I'm fine. And of course, like I'm crying and like I'm so broken. I would just tell my parents like I'm fine, and they would just be like, Leah, like what's wrong? Like I know, and it's not that I didn't trust them, but I just didn't. I just had these walls built around me, and I was like, okay, maybe if I don't let anybody see me, then they won't leave, or maybe if people won't see my heart, then they won't like, yeah, just leave and just love me. And I don't know, I guess that's how I would say it. So then that's when I began to get really, my only my closest friends knew that, because my closest unsafe friends would know that. There was like Madi, one, she did know a lot, just because when we came back, we kind of got close again, and so I would tell her a lot. Just I don't know, we just got close again, and we were like best friends and stuff. So she knew a lot, but also some of my other friends, they knew so much too. So, and then it's crazy because I don't know if you remember, but when Pastor Wacker had come, I think like last year, he was saying like about like the church kid mafia thing.
Yeah, yeah.
So I remember I wasn't saved that time. So I remember I was sitting one next to one of my friends, and of course when he was saying that, we were like laughing and stuff. But it was funny because it was so true. Like it was so true. And I remember he was like, well, some of y'all are like the leader and stuff. And I just remember thinking like, that might be me. And people, like my friend was like, that's you. Or like, so we would just laugh it off and stuff. But then again, I never like, I don't know, like presented. Yeah. Like I never like showed it. So I remember like people would just assume I was saved. I don't know, maybe because my dad was a pastor. I don't know why they would think it, because now that I think about it, I'm like, why would you think I was saved when I like didn't do anything? It's not that they thought I was saved because like I rose my hands and like I would go to the altar. It wasn't because I was like, because I didn't do any of that. Because when we were growing up, my brothers, well, we come from a bad family, but my brothers are teenagers, and my dad like had always told us, but we just learn that you either are saved or you're not. Like you don't play games. Like, and if my whether my brothers were saved or not, my parents would be like, okay, if you're not, here you are, and if it was just like,
Yeah.
if So I just remember thinking like, and that was it. Like I was like, no, like I'm not saved. But people would think it because I was very, of course, my mom would tell me um, like so I was always friendly and like going not out with people, but I was always with people. I was friendly. I'm a very people person. So and I never really like, not that I didn't have attitude, but I never like
you weren't rude and stuff
no,
like that.
like
Yeah,
I wasn't.
right.
You know how like those kids are like, some church kids are like,
They show it.
yeah, they show everything
this,
like yeah,
everything with attitude. Right.
yeah. But I mean, maybe during services I was, but I was never that like to people, like especially older adults, because I grew up like that. Like, and if I did that, I knew my parents would beat me. So I knew that I was just like, I just didn't do that. So I wasn't like that. I didn't. Of course, I had like a lot of attitude and stuff, but I never was rude about it. Like I never was like, and so I think that's why people thought I was saved, because I wasn't like that. So
Right.
people would just think, oh, like Leah's fine, like she's, So I think that's why. But until I did get saved, yeah.
And so that was that. You got saved when you came back from boot camp, right?
No, I got saved in boot camp actually. In the New Mexico boot camp, not last year, but the year
The first one
before
you
that.
went to, right? Yeah.
So I remember when we went, of course, I was mad that we were going because I didn't want to go.
But you weren't saved at that time, though,
No,
right? Yeah, right.
I wasn't. So of course I was mad and all that. And so I just remember, like I said, like I was very stubborn, very, very stubborn, because very stubborn and very prideful. I didn't want to let my hurt go. I didn't want to let my bitterness go. I didn't want that. I was just like, this is who I am. Like I accepted it, I guess. And so I remember when we went, like all throughout the week, of course people would come up to me like, do you want to pray? And I'd be like, no, like I'm fine. Like, and they'd be like, oh, like why and stuff. So back when I was saved, and I remember I just said like I was just saved. I didn't have a personal. So when I guess like officially didn't get saved, I don't know, unsaved or something. I remember thinking in my mind, if I ever get saved again, I'm gonna go all in. And for me, all I grew up in church, so I knew what I had to do. I knew why I wasn't all in, and I knew why I was the way I was when I was saved, you know. So I knew that. So I just remember thinking, if I ever get saved again, I have to go all in. Like, and like, again, I was very stubborn, so I knew that, and I stuck with that. So like, you go all in, like you go to outreaches, you have your own prayer life, you read the Bible, you like things like that. Um, you have like your own personal relationship with God. And I remember thinking that. So when people would ask me at boot camp, like why don't you want to get saved? I literally like told this girl that she was talking to me, and I remember telling her, because I know that I'm gonna have to go all in, and I don't want to. And she was just like, well, like, and of course, like she's trying to help me and stuff. But like I remember telling her, and I know, and I don't want to do that. Like I just don't. I know what I have to do, and I don't want to do it because I knew how hard it was gonna be. Because again, we were out in the we were out pioneering, so I knew how hard it was. I knew the struggles you had to go through. I knew the tests, I guess, you had to go through, and I didn't want to do that. I was like, that's gonna take too much out of me that I don't have. Um, so so yeah, I remember telling her that. I was just like, no, like I that's because I knew what I had to do.
Right.
So all throughout the week, like, and of course people talk to you, DIs talk to you and stuff. So I remember one of the DIs, she was like asking me, like, of course they ask you like, oh, when are you saved, or how old are you, whatever. So I just remember telling her no, and she was like, why not? And I was like, because I don't want to. And then so then of course they talk to you deeper, and then things come out and stuff. So I remember.
And at the time, you're still dealing with all that, like the way you were, like your mind, like it's because of me and all that. You're still wrestling with all that.
Yeah, I was very stuck on that.
Right.
I was just stuck on that. I was so focused on that, and I was so focused on people leaving and people hurting me and people. But then again, friendships were so much to me at the same time. I know it doesn't make sense, but that's how it was, because I kept people so close to me, and so like I don't know. That's how it was. Um, so I just remember, yeah, I just remember my DI talked to me, Mike Gomez, and he was, of course, he was just talking to me, and he was just like, um, I don't know, I don't remember what he had said. Oh, he had told me like, why don't you want to get saved? And I told him one of the reasons why I didn't want to do it, especially at boot camp, was because I feel like it's known, not known, but like a lot of kids get saved at boot camp because, not that you're pressured into it, but a lot of kids are doing it. That's how I explained that to my mom, because I told her like, it's just like the world, like kids do things because other kids are doing that in school. So I feel like boot camp was like that. Like, okay, other people are getting saved, so let me get saved, you know, because other people were doing it. So I remember like telling him like, I don't want to do that, because I was very prideful and stubborn, and I told him I didn't want to follow people. That's what I never did. Of course, I did follow people because I wasn't saved, but it was never like following people. I never followed anybody. Like any of my friends, I never followed them. Like they were following me.
Right,
like
right.
it wasn't like that. So I remember telling him like, and I don't want to go home and I don't want to go home and like everything is just going to be the same again, because you're going to go home and everything's going to come back to your life. You have to still live your life. You still have to go to school. You still have to deal with things. You still have to make the effort to put the effort in to be saved and things like that. So, so yeah. So then he told me, he was just like, you just need to like let things let tomorrow worry about tomorrow, like about like that scripture.
Right.
I think it's like Matthew something. It's somewhere in Matthew.
Like not to worry.
Yeah, not to worry. Like let tomorrow worry about tomorrow.
Right.
Like it's today's today. Like it doesn't. And I just remember thinking about that, and I was like, because I knew, and I was just like now that he put it like that, I was just like, oh, like I never thought about that. But it's funny because that was my DI, but some other lady was talking to me, the first DI, and she was talking about like to me, and I remember being so mad that she was talking to me because she was getting into me, and because she did like an illustration I did not like, or like it wasn't just, it was an illustration that didn't get to me, but it did get to me at the same time. But I don't know how to explain it. But I just remember being so mad, like so mad. And I remember she had talked to me, but that time where she was talking to me, we had to go into church, like it was church time, and she was, and I remember I was crying and crying because I was so mad. I was so mad, and so I remember going in there, and she was like, "You need to I want you to listen to some words of the song they were singing or whatever." I don't remember it, but and I just remember thinking like, I don't want to. Like, why don't you understand that I don't want to? Like, and I just remember again, like I was so stubborn that like I'm not gonna do something I don't want to do. Like that's what I remember thinking like, why don't you understand? Like I didn't want to. So so I just remember like I was just like so mad. So I went in there, whatever the day that, I think that was the morning of Wednesday of boot camp. So later on in the day, I think when we were going to church again, she asked me, she was like, "Oh, did you get saved?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, she was like, I remember her telling me, she was like, "Oh, you need to ask God for to show you like himself, I guess." And I remember thinking like, I don't want to. Like I don't want him to. Like I just didn't. I just remember closing myself off so much that I was just like, like I remember thinking right when she was telling me that, I just remember thinking like, you don't understand that why would I pray something for, why would I even pray? I just remember being like, why would I even pray to God because I'm not even saved? But I just remember thinking like, why would I want that why would I pray that when I don't want that? You know? Yeah. So then I was just like, oh, this lady's been annoying, man. Yeah. So where it's going on, so then that's when my DI had talked to me. I think it was on Thursday morning. So that was Thursday morning, and that time where he was talking to me about that, he asked me, "Oh, like, do you want to pray and stuff?" And it was like we were lining up and stuff. So I was like, "Oh, like not right now, like not right now." But I remember crying, and like that time had really broken me, and like seeing it in a different perspective, I guess. And but I remember wanting to at that moment to pray and to get saved again. And so I remember he was like, well, so he told me, he was like, well, why don't, so he was like, would pray, I mean, like at the altar call during the service, later on, like come find me and I'll pray with you. And I remember being like, okay, like, yeah, I will. But that was in the morning of Thursday, and so we were doing whatever. So then we go back to church, and I remember throughout the day, I started like, I guess like going back, like thinking again, and going back and just being like, well, why don't like just going back to my old self, I guess, not old self, but just thinking again, and just being like, oh, like I really don't. So then again, like I guess like the enemy was trying, or not, I guess I know, but like the enemy was trying to like you don't really need that, like God doesn't want that, whatever, God doesn't want you or whatever. And so I remember throughout the day I was like, oh, but I told him I was gonna pray with him, and I just remember thinking, okay, I'll just do it because, and I just remember thinking like I feel so bad for telling him because I was so stubborn. I remember feeling bad, like I don't want to tell him and like not go up to him when we talked about that, because I knew what I had felt in that moment and knew what I had wanted in that moment. So I just remember I was like, okay, I'll just do it because I was like, we're gonna go home anyways, like it's Thursday, um, and like he'll never see me again, you know. So then I remember throughout the sermon, just the same self, and I just remember, especially at the altar call, I just remember feeling like very convicted and very like just yeah convicted. And one, I just started thinking about what he had said and stuff, but it was like you know, like when people have like the angel and like the devil on the side. I feel like that's how it was because I was just like, oh, I want to, but I know that I'm gonna have to go all in like I said I was, and then this is like, oh, like, but what about this, but what about this? And so I just remember thinking like, so it was just kind of like a pool. And I just remember this girl that she was sitting next to me. Well, multiple girls had been talking to me during that week, but I remember this girl, she was sitting next to me, and she was just saying like, I feel like she was God. God for sure used her, but she was saying the things that I needed to be said. I don't know exactly what she said, but I just remember her telling me things that she didn't know, but it was all kind of like coming into place. Like she was talking about like God's love and God wanting me, and I just remember like, you don't even know me, like I don't. And I had just met her that week. I didn't know her at all, and I just remember like crying and crying, and of
So
course this
she's
also,
kind of speaking to you about everything you're wrestling with, right?
yeah,
About God's love, but
yeah,
you're over here dealing with like
yeah.
He
So
doesn't love
he's
you.
telling you, she's like, Leah, like he really wants you, like he cares about you, he loves you, and he has a plan for you, and it's not worth it or whatever. And I remember thinking she was younger than me. She's like, I think she was like 2 years younger than me. I remember thinking, man, if this younger girl
Oh, so
than
it was
me,
a girl from the boot camp.
yeah,
It's not one of the people from the
church,
yeah.
no,
Oh,
it's
wow.
I didn't even like I've never known her since that week. I
And she just
literally
went
met.
up to you.
No, she was sitting next to
Oh,
me,
okay, okay, okay.
and it's crazy because we're in the same platoon, but until I think it was until like that day we actually started talking, which was crazy because we're in the same group. So of course, like you would think, but until that day, we had started talking. So I feel like it definitely was all God.
Right,
But
right.
um, so I just remember, so I didn't know her at all. Like, and I didn't open up to her. I didn't nothing. But she knew I was struggling because at boot camp they see you at your worst. They see you crying. They see you everything. So at that time I know you definitely could see the issues that I had and stuff. So then I was really like battling and stuff. So uh it was like altar call, like I said, and but it was like how they do it, like, oh, this is, they start talking and there's like, okay, like last call. So it was really getting to like that point at the end. And I just remember like it was like just like I was just like, oh, like, and then she was like, come on, like you can do it, like just raise your hand, like God will help you and all this stuff. So I just remember it was so hard for me because for a church kid to raise your hand during, I feel like for a church kid to raise your hand during altar call is a big step because nobody does that. I've never seen anybody do that. So for me, I was just like, oh, like, do I really want to do this? Of course, like if somebody comes up to you and that's something totally different than you raising your hand and be like, I need Jesus, you know, and going up to the altar. And I remember telling, she was like, come on, come on. So like I raised my hand like at the very last call. I remember it was the very last call. And so he's like, okay, we'll come to the front. So of course at that point I'm already crying and stuff. And I go to the front and I just remember like kneeling down and I just remember like closing my eyes, and I know it sounds like so dramatic and all that, but I just remember closing my eyes, and in that moment I felt God's love for me. But it was so real. But it was so intimate, and I needed that. He couldn't have gotten me any other way, because I just remember feeling God's love, and I remember saying like, "Oh my God," but not like in that way, but like, "Oh my," like I didn't know that this, like, even like I had never had that experience before, ever, 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 ever. So I just remember like, and I just started bawling. I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like, if I, not that if I'd known, but like if this is what I've been waiting for and been wanting my whole life, like why didn't I do it sooner? But so yeah, so then some girl came up to talk to me, whatever. So then I remember, and it's not that it was all like planned, because none of it was. None of it was planned, because it was a Thursday night of boot camp, and so I just remember thinking like, dang, I got saved. Like what? That was crazy. And so I remember thinking like, okay, well, what did I say? Like I said, if I ever got saved again, like I have to go all in. So I remember coming back home, and right away my mom knew something was different, because she looked at me and she's like, "Did you get saved?" And I just like look at her, and like I'm smiling, and she's like, and she asked the same girl that was talking to me, because I introduced her and stuff. And she's like, "Did she?" And then she's like, "Yeah, she did." And then she just like, and then of course they're all happy and stuff. So I just remember as soon as I came back, I started counting down days, the months that I could get into ministry, and I started as soon like that next week. I think I want to say I started reading my Bible. Like I started like the plan that they have. I started doing that. I started praying, and yeah. So then that's how, because I knew what I needed to do. You know. Yeah.
Wow. So okay, talk about whenever you came back from the boot camp. Like, were you wrestling? Did you ever at any point were like, all right, what are people gonna say? Like my church friends. Did any of that come to mind, or it was just like whatever? Like, did you already have your mind made up? Did that ever affect you?
Um.
Because you were the leader to the mafia. Remember that?
um. Honestly, no. I never. I did at one point like feel like, again, like not alone, but I was just like, man, like none of these teenagers are saved. Like none. And of course, that year when we came back, all the teenagers actually had got saved. But as months went on, people went back to school. A lot of them fell back. So I remember ever since that one, so a lot of kids that went to boot camp didn't were already saved going to boot camp, but like more than half of us weren't saved going to boot camp. But when we came back, everybody was saved. So the people that had gotten saved over there, nobody stayed saved, nobody. So I remember, and I was like the only one, and I just remember I won like maybe December. So that was in July. So maybe like in December, I started feeling like, man, like I'm the only one. Like, oh crap! Like I have to show it, because nobody else is doing it. Like I have to do it. So I just remember I was like, well, God, like I know that you're gonna help me, and you've made me this far, and this is so I'm just gonna do it. So and I'm just gonna show them like you can do it, and it is possible. And I don't know if, I mean, none of them ever tell me that, but tell me anything. But I'm like, maybe it's because like they think like, oh well, you don't go to school, or like you don't do this, or, and which is true. Like I'm like, yes, I get it. Like school's hard, and especially right now, and I don't know, because I don't know how to go to school now in these days. So yeah, so I just never really, but I remember when we did come back, like I said, everybody was saved. So I remember my best friend that wasn't saved, that we had went together, she she was like, I remember she was telling my mom, she was like, man, when Leo went up there, I was like, oh my gosh, Leo went up there, because she knew me. She knew, like, if anybody knew me, it was her, like how I really was. And she was like, and even some of the guys that we had went with were like, what the heck, like Leo went, like that's crazy. Like it's because they knew who I was, they knew who I truly was, how my heart was. So, and I'm not saying because I was like some like I don't know, some great person or something, because I wasn't. But just because they knew who I truly was.
Right. Y'all knew each other because
Yeah,
y'all were all
we were all in it together.
right.
We were all like, okay, we're not getting like.
Yeah.
I remember when we were like going over there, we're like, I don't know what our parents are thinking. Like none of us are getting saved, and like look at me now. But
Right.
I know and I remember that we would say things like that. But I just remember they were like so blown away, and I remember one of my friends, she was like, told me, she was like, if I knew that if you can do it, then I can do it too,
Right.
because I was like the worst one in the group.
Yeah,
like
the leader gets saved. Everybody else gonna get saved right after.
I was the worst one, I guess, in the group. So everybody was just like, man, if she could do it, then I can do it. So yeah. So then I just didn't save it ever since. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I remember when y'all came back, and I remember seeing you. I remember seeing all y'all when y'all came back. All y'all were saved, and little by little, everybody started like going back, and you could tell, right? But well, ever since you came back the first time, you stayed safe, and I've seen that. But that's awesome. That's cool. So you've been saved 2 years. Okay, so you come back, you're saved, and now what? Tell us about some things that God's done in your life since you've been saved, like especially with your mind and all that.
So, oh yeah, that's so when we it's crazy. Okay, so when I wasn't saved, now that I think about it, I know that it was because a lot of in my mind and stuff, I could not sleep. Like I couldn't sleep for nothing. Like I would have trouble falling asleep, and I wouldn't sleep through the night. Like I would just wake up just uncomfortable, and just like, like when you go to sleep and but you have so much on your mind that you keep waking up in the morning, like keep waking up in the night.
Right.
That's how I was, but like every single night. So I remember throughout the day I would sleep a lot, and I would sleep in a lot, because it was so much in my mind. I just wanted to block everything out, but then again I couldn't, because it was still in my mind when I was asleep. So I just remember, um, when I had gotten saved, that had stopped. It didn't. It was, and I never. It's not like I like saw things when I was asleep or anything, because I never did. But I just remember when I had gotten saved, like it had stopped like completely. I slept like really really good, and so not recently, but maybe like a few months ago, and me sometimes even like not sometimes, but it will still try to like come back, like my thinking like, oh, what if God doesn't love me? But I'm like, no, because now I know that the devil was lying to me. Now I know why I was thinking like that. Um, so I sleep good now, but I just remember that was a really big thing, because there was so much in my mind and so much I was battling with, that I never and I never thought about it. And I would ask my mom, like, Mom, I can't sleep or something. And she would be like, well, is like there anything in my mind? I'm like, no, there isn't. But there really was. But so I just remember thinking like, I just remember like seeing it and just be like, oh, like wait, I actually slept. Like I slept good, and it was. So I just remember seeing, especially that in God, I guess, or God. I don't know how to explain it, but and then I would say in my family, I would say that I saw God, even though of course families aren't my our families aren't perfect. Nobody's family is perfect, but I feel like every single, not every single, but like times where things are hard in my family and that I'm like, it wears me down and stuff. There's always something that I'm like, oh, thank you, God. Like I see now, I see the bright side of things. Right. I don't just, so when I wasn't saved, I would always be like, I would always point out the bad things. I would like, well, that's not right, that's not right, that's not right. So but now I'm like, so like for an example, the the past few, no, not the past few, but like maybe like last year. I mean, it's barely the beginning of the year, but um, something had happened in my family, and it really, really struck me hard. And I was just like, man. So then that's when the thoughts started coming back, and I was like, I made up my mind, like, I'm going to serve God, and no matter what. But of course, things still hurt, and you still have a heart. So, but I just remember thinking, like, I knew that God was still with me. And even though, like, sometimes, like, the loneliness would try to come back, I always felt God some way, somehow. I always saw God in things. So I remember when that certain thing had happened, um, my sister-in-law, which is my the first brother had left. He came back and he got married. So my sister-in-law, um, they're gonna have a baby, and I remember, of course, we were so excited, whatever. So I remember when she came out, like, I just remember that was around the time that that certain thing happened, and so that was my bright side. I was like, yes, this had happened in my family, but not that we got anything out of that, not that we didn't either, but not that it was in the same thing, but it was just something else, something greater, that I knew that God was still working in my family and my life, because I was like, a whole new human has come into the world, you know? So I just remember, like, seeing that very, like, real, I guess.
Right.
Yeah.
Man. So what are some things that what are some things that you want God to do, or even like in your life, or what are some things you want to see God, certain areas you want God to move, or even things He's been doing recently for you? What are some things you want?
Definitely keep working in me, because I still need that along a big thing, and just to become the one, or be the woman or person that God wants me to be, and like not what other people want me to be, if that makes sense.
Right.
Like, because I feel like in the church, especially when you get saved and you're like a teenager, people like assume things like who you're gonna become or who you're gonna be when you grow up.
Right.
And, none of it is bad, but I don't want to become that person or strive to be that person, because I'm not saved for that purpose. Like, I'm saved for God's purpose, and He saved me for a purpose, you know? So I just, for sure, that, and really save save my unsaved siblings, and yeah, just because I do come from a big family, like I've said multiple times, but um, there's siblings that are not saved, so I do want definitely to see that, because I know that God has a plan for them, and some of them, they've been saved before, so I know that they know. So and I definitely do believe that God is going to save them, and eventually in the future, just get married in the church and raise my kids in church and help them any possible way that I can, and try to help them what I struggled with and what I know as a church kid.
Uh, Before we go, I give everybody a chance to leave some words for people who are watching, people who are your age, more so teenagers, because that's really what I'm shooting for, is teenagers who are struggling with trying to figure out a place in the world. And there's a bunch of kids, bunch of teenagers that don't know about God. They just know, like, okay, I know of God, but they're struggling with trying to fit in. And so, what are some words you would leave teenagers, kids your age, about serving God, or even church kids who may be listening who don't want to be saved? What are a few words you'll leave them? Some words of encouragement.
So if you are a saved teenager, but you're battling like with like kind of being saved, but like trying to fit in or trying to do God's will but trying to do your own thing, let me tell you, like, it's not worth it at all, because it really just, it first, it affects your mind and how you're going to see God in the future and see him in any way, because I can tell you that. But especially, like, just go all in, like, go to outreaches, go be in the most ministries. Not that, like, because you're in a lot of ministries you're gonna have like something great, but just being involved in church is such a big thing. Have relationships with people in the church your own age, saved people, older, like, exampleships, good exampleships, godly exampleships, and have a personal relationship with God. Read your Bible, and if you say, like, well, I don't know how, read your Bible and pray. Just, that's, if you just do those things, it'll go a long way, trust me. And it really helps. And just say you're not saved, God has you, and you might not know God, and you might do, maybe you do or whatever, but just know that God sees you and he knows exactly who you are. If he can see a church girl and pour out his love on me, then he can definitely do it for you. If you're broken, if you're not, if you've done so many bad things, if it doesn't matter, he still loves you. He still has a plan for you. Don't lose faith. Don't lose hope in that, because if you might say, like, well, what if people think, people are gonna judge you regardless, whether you're not, whether something you wear, whether it's how you look, like, they're gonna judge you either way. So why don't they judge you for loving God and for serving God? And that's, yeah, I think that's, and hopefully that helps you. I don't know if it will, and I don't know if it got through you, but I hope and pray it will.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you want to give your life to Jesus Christ, just pray this simple prayer with me real quick. Say, Father God, I'm a sinner in need of a Savior. I ask that you forgive me of all my sin. Come into my heart and be my Lord and Savior. I believe you died on the cross and rose the third day. Thank you for forgiving me of all my sin. If you prayed that prayer and you need a church to go to, come in, that number on the bottom of the screen, come in contact with us, and we'll help you find a local church to go to and start living for God. Thank you.
Got 2 lanes on the one way. Got 2 lanes on the one way. Got 2 lanes on the one way. Heaven or hell coming someday. Listen to that one way show.